So the Great Charter and the Charter of Liberties and the laws of Edward the Confessor, they're not regarded as just law or even just statute. So they contain and retain, remind, memorise the customs of England, the ancient customs of the realm, right? They set out and record what the customs of the realm are, right? So they're not just laws, they're not just legislation, they're actually a record and a memorial of what the ancient customs of the realm are, of our people, of our ancestors, of the values of the nation, right? This petition of rights is basically reaffirming Magna Carta, of which there's 6 Magna Cartas, right? The petition of right. So it says it's declared and enacted that no man should be judged of life or limb against the form of the Great Charter, and as well the law of the land. Now, the word and, right? And, so if you've got an apple and a pear, or a shoe and a hat, they're 2 different things, but both together. And the law of the land. So it's actually making a distinction between the Great Charter and the laws, the legislation, the enactments. And by the said Great Charter and other the laws and statutes of this your realm, no man ought to be judged to death but by the laws established in this your realm, either by the customs of the same realm or by acts of Parliament. Well, Parliament makes acts and laws, right? But what are the customs? The customs, but we have to know what the customs are. We have to know what the customs are. It says the customs of the same realm or by the acts of Parliament. Well, the customs are retained in the persons, the actual inhabitants, the nation, the realm of people, recorded in their very fabric of their being, their memories, their bodies, their genetic memories, their genetic print. They've evolved and grown and lived on the land and have become people with customs. This is why when you go to a foreign country like India, they've got laws but also a religion and customs. There are racial aspects to this that cannot be undermined or ignored. They've just actually opened the Ministry of Justice, the judiciary, have just opened a Sikh court. They've just opened an experimental court especially made for Sikhs, for Sikh people, because they've got particular customs and quirks and peculiarities of law as by their customs, which aren't understood in as much subtle or sensitive ways in standard normal courts, right? I mean, you could say this if you had a jury full of Richard Dawkins clones, because he's an atheist. You don't want to be there, if you're a Catholic and you're against abortion, and you were protesting against it with a load of atheists on the jury, or you don't stand a cat and else chance. So, so now there are multiple statute laws that I've got citations of with this body of work. I mean, I don't really want to navigate away from this, but they all, I mean, you have to take my word for it now, but I've got them, they're all over the place. I've got them attached to all this body of work. Anyone, well, actually, I'm going to pause it, right? I'll have to pause it. So we'll go through some of these statutes. I don't know exactly which ones of these are repealed and which aren't, but it's a very good snapshot of the opinions, the laws, and the ideals all the way through the statutes. But remember, these statutes even aren't the Great Charter, right? And they're just not normal acts of Parliament. Peers of the realm and great officers for great offences. Well, you can actually have peers of the realm. You can have peers of the realm who are your... We can only be judged by our peers. There are different levels of peers. There are peers of Parliament and so forth. Peers of the realm and great officers for great offences. Well, great officers would be those who have title. You would say probably they're the peers of Parliament, or possibly even, sheriffs, constables, judges and so forth. Shall be tried in Parliament. That's an Edward Act. The King's ministers, etc., acting against the Great Charter, shall answer in the Parliament. Judgments given against the Great Charter shall be void. The judgment against the charters of the City of London declared to be illegal and void. He that is proved in Parliament to pursue repeal of statutes made shall be adjudged a traitor. But it says he, though, not she. Now, ironically, it's Queen Elizabeth who has repealed, I think, a lot of these great charters and so forth. Although, it was in the 1850s when they took the jury out of the magistrates' courts, and then all the way through till 1971, I think, when you've got the end of the assizes and so forth. But they were starting to remove the juries. But really, I mean, let's get this clear from earlier on when I opened. The Great Charter is not statutes or acts of Parliament. It holds it's the memory of what the customs of the realm are. The gold standard, so to say. It's like, in America when they've got, the gold, what do you measure something by? The gold standard. What do you measure the customs by? What do you measure the conscience by? Different countries have a different conscience, like if you go to cannibals on an island somewhere, in off Africa, they might, or in Indonesia in the forest, they might be eating people still. Cannibalism, this is the thing to do with different customs. Now, our country has got an identity, a national identity, and a standard, right? It's got a standard. You see, I don't think Rishi Sunak quite actually... Well, he's a Hindu, so he's not a believer of the faith of the national religion of the country. Even though we accept other religions into the country, he's not a believer in that religion and faith, which still is it's what the judicial system's built on and around, because it includes that book, although they've modified and changed the law so other people can be on trial depending what their belief or God is or whatever. But the whole... If we didn't have that standard, there might not be a due process of law. There might not be any rights. There might not even be a right to fair trial. It's even possible for you to call trial by combat, but nobody uses it anymore. But that was regarded as a lawful due process. But people choose not to have it, or rather not fight. It all comes down to money. But this is why we don't have posses. You're not meant to have a posse who just goes around lynching people, or a gang and then just gets people and gives them an unfair trial without even any evidence, or just accuses them of something without any evidence. We've just had a guy on from America, a high-ranking military American veteran guy who does a lot of mercenary work now in Africa. A lot of people get a lot of troubles. They can't set a business up. It's not safe. They've got trouble from cartels and things like that. They need protection, or they need to deter them. They can't even go about lawful due process, and the government can't help them out with it. It's too remote. So they need to pay for bodyguards in their own country, that's why we don't have it. It's not like that in England. We've got a standard, and unfortunately we're getting a lot of immigration coming in, even born in this country, even go to school in this country, but they don't seem to inherit or, the standard, and this is what is corroding and eroding the rights and the standard. They don't want it to be that. They don't want it to be that standard anymore. In a way, they're bringing in their customs and traditions. That we are inheriting the Rishi Sunak's traditions from where he originates from. We're not saying that I'm not claiming he wasn't born in England, but without being mean or nasty, it's seeds blown, in the wind, and they take root in the country, and they grow here. It's an English, it's an English tree, it's an English plant, it's grown in England. It's like tea plant, right? You can grow tea plants in England, but they're not of England, right? Now, the thing is, at the same time, Sunak will say statements like that, keep the British pound strong, or he might, he's wanting to do CBCDs now, or he might say, he wants Britain to be at the forefront of engineering or technology, a new department of technology. Doesn't want England to fall, into some kind of, remote Transylvanian village or Russian medieval village. He wants to keep England at the forefront of world technology, the standard. He wants to keep the gold standard for technology. I know it's improving, but he thinks that he's making improvements to the justice system, to the customs. Thinks he's improving the customs, but he actually isn't. Because what we've actually got now is literally cameras at the side of the road without any humans involved, just taking snapshots and sending letters out with fines and demanding you to pay it, right? That literally is like, an outlaw in the forest just saying, give me, 20 gold pieces. Now, they've got evidence to take a photo. We prove you did this, 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 you did it, you did it, you did it, photo, right? But it's the lawful due process and people seeing evidence and hearing facts, and always the right of your peers, the other people, to assess it and make a decision based on their opinion, not on a photograph. Like, it's not a human, it's not a person. Really, what they want to do is they want to automatically raise everything out of the juries, magistrates' courts, kind of like, in a way, they're not letting us petition Parliament, and they're not letting us, appeal to Parliament for crimes, judicial matters to be heard or debated in Parliament. But what Sunak's government, and probably since John Major, it's Philip Windsor and Elizabeth as well, mainly. But I suppose it goes back to 1850s when they started to take the juries out. But what they really are doing is the ministers now in Parliament are making laws and machines, and their parliamentary privilege and their peer judgment at a higher level of Parliament, right? They're going to say, we, the MPs and the Lords, like Walney, we are going to judge all these matters ourselves. And we're going to set, if you trigger this camera, that's it. You're guilty. Pay the fine, right? You're not going to have a jury of your peers. We're automatically upping the level to our peer judgment, and we're automatically going to say, you're all guilty, right? Pay the fine straight away, and our machines will take photos, and obviously our machines don't make mistakes, so our machines are it's like a Judge Dredd, right? The machines are the judge and jury, because the peers believe that all this evidence is fact-based, cannot be faulted or wrong, so therefore Lord Walney and all the peers, they won't forgive you like your peers, you'll pay the fine. Right? That's the new standard. The standard is like what Sunak was saying to Starmer in Parliament last week. He was saying, tough on crime, tough on criminals. So this is toughies, hard chews. They're not soft. They don't chew in the mouth. They're hard. That's effectively what they've done. But ironically, now they've ripped out all his juries and the conscience of our peers, so we don't have to pay these buffoons fines, right? If our peers don't think we're guilty, if you can get a fair trial or a jury now in a magistrate's court, which you can't, right? Or from a police chief who's not really allowed to hold common pleas. But, ironically, going by their overriding peer judgment and meticulous machines, which there's no arguing with, ironically, if you officially want to submit a petition to them and say, can we have it debated in Parliament, release this prisoner, they don't want to do it. Why? Because you're actually collecting the signatures, 100,000 signatures to boo, not just, making a plea and a prayer to them, because then you're actually getting the signatures to their upper level. So it's kind of, it's all corporate policy to me, corporate directives and policy. And I think that's what Walney is a man of policy. Consent, submit, accept, yield, kneel. Kneel before Walney and his drone army. Unfortunately, I expected more from Walney. But it turns out that he is a traitor of the realm, like Elizabeth and Philip, I think, are going to turn out to be. So, if it's proved pursuit of repeal of statutes shall be judged a traitor, well, the Magna Carta is not a statute, so it can't be repealed. And all orders and judgments against it are invalid, including repealing it by an act of law. An act of law trying to repeal the Magna Carta, you can't repeal it in an act of law, because acts of law can only repeal laws. You're not meant to repeal statutes. Appeals shall be determined by the laws of the realm and shall not be pursued in Parliament. Well, that was 1399 to... This was before the Bill of Rights, when it's the right of the subjects to petition either Houses of the Parliament or the King, and all prosecutions for doing so are illegal. This is even before the Tumultuous Petitioning Act, actually. I think this was for peers as well, because peers have always been able to be prosecuted in between the sessions of Parliament. Peers have always been able to be prosecuted in the sessions of Parliament from the Charter of Liberties 1100, right? It says appeals shall be decided by the laws of the realm and should not be pursued in Parliament. So this is actually more evidence for a case that I've got open at the moment, complaining about Lord Hanningfield's privilege, and I've got plenty to say about that as well. There are some other things to say about that privilege in a minute. I'll get on to that in a second. I might as well do that as well as while I'm doing this. Servants and secretaries shall have the liberties of those who are called to Parliament. So, but they can still be prosecuted. There's something to say about the privileges, which I'll say that in a minute. If any statute be made contrary to the great charters, it shall be holden to none. So a statute is not the charters either. The charters contain the customs, the gold standard of the realm. So it shall be holden to none. Statutes that have been made contrary to free customs, etc., shall be void. Again, these are statutes. This is explaining something to you. It's not just, we'll make this law and word it. What have they worded it from? When this particular law in front of us now here was enacted, was made, where did they get the writing from? Where's the basis from? It's not a brand new law they've conjured up. It's a clarification of existing law, right? Statutes that have been made contrary to the free customs shall be void. Well, free customs, they're not even law. They're not even written in legislation and law. They're in us. They're in the people. And particularly when you've got a jury, a conscience, which is the customs of the people, depending on what type of people your jury is made out of, whether it's made out of 12 atheists or 12 devout Christians or 12 Muslims, might result in a different verdict based on the same evidence, which is why we now have like a mixed or random jury, but you don't even get a jury in a magistrate's court at all anyway. I mean, this is one of the reasons why they're doing this new experimental Sikh court, which have just been advertised and promoted recently, which they're doing as a trial, the Ministry of Justice. So the free customs are in the Magna Carta recorded, and that is reaffirming them also from the Charter of the Forests and the Great Charter of Liberties and the laws of Edward the Confessor, which is the laws of Edward the Confessor, which are retained in the Charter of Liberties. That is the memory of the country. It's the history, it's the genetic memory. It is the molecules of the soil or earth of these islands. The memories in the minds of people, the conduct and behaviour of the evolution of mankind in the British Isles, and their quirks, their personality traits of people of this land, enshrined in the customs, and it's setting a standard for this part of the world of how you're expected to behave and conduct yourself, right? Which is expected of anyone with respect who goes to India, takes the shoes off in a mosque, or doesn't have sex on the beach in India. It's against the law and disrespectful. Apparently, they didn't like English. Alvida's own pet Yobs going over with Bermuda short, English boxer shorts, getting drunk on cans of beer and shouting, vulgar things. You don't do that. But in England, it's a custom. They like a bit of, here we go. It seems like that we're singing away as customs, never mind. Skull, I've forgotten the words. It's like, here we go. Well, Philip Windsor and Elizabeth Windsor are, repealing statutes that can't be repealed. I dread to, So this is it. Penalties incurred for not taking the oaths may be pardoned under the Privy Seal. But there was a case, McGuinness versus United Kingdom citation case on that. He didn't want to take the oath of Parliament, the Northern Ireland MPs. But they didn't actually. You can be pardoned, but you can't sit in Parliament. They can suspend the rules of Parliament, though. Ironically, I've got to say, there's a lot to say about the McGuinness case, and I don't think they raised all the possible points that could be raised in it. That's another matter that's to do with. Well, actually, it is connected to this Hanningfield thing because it's one of the citations that Jeremy Johnson KC used in that paper that he did, Observations on behalf of the House of Lords. You don't have to take the oath. You can be pardoned, and they can even suspend the rules. I don't know if they can suspend the rules so you sit in Parliament. It's set in law. So I don't know whether it could be... But there's also a law... There's a law saying that you can only take oaths from loyal persons or only relying... So the thing is, if they're in Northern Ireland and if the people in Parliament aren't loyal to that part of the country and they took the oath and the King or Parliament weren't going to be loyal in return or honest or uphold the laws, then they wouldn't be able... It says you can't take an oath when there is, when people aren't going to uphold or respect or be loyal. So, that wasn't raised in the McGuinness case. I could have a go at that case. There are plenty of legal arguments for that McGuinness case, which they missed out on and failed on. Anyway, here's Elizabeth when she's around 40 years old. This is around the time they repeal all these laws. So I don't think that she can do it. I don't think she could repeal Magna Carta. And it was probably to do with Philip as well. Just think that's lasted all the way from 1215. It was like it was gone, then it's back again, then it's gone, then it's back, and then it was modified, but retained, and then it's lasted from 1215. We've got the Charter of Liberties 1100. From 1215, that's lasted all the way through all those monarchs. From 1215, that's not that long after William the Conqueror, but they still kept the Charter of Liberties and the laws of Edward the Confessor. So, in the Magna Carta, so the laws of Edward, it's lucky we've still got those 4 clauses with Part 1 in, but all the way through, till just the last lady who has just left us, all the way through since William the Conqueror, right? I don't really know what they were on. This is like a theory. I think that, the naming Charles really was, you see, 1850s, they were taking the juries out of the magistrates. There was a lot of opium going around, and then they were discovering a lot more, pumpernickel powders, powder pie courts, pie powder courts, a lot of chemistry happened in the late 1800s, and then they got, cocaine, they had in toothpaste and so forth. I'm not saying they didn't have, God knows what through history, mandrakes or God knows, deadly nightshades or whatever. But in the 1850s, they were refining they had the opium the whole way through, right? Because they were selling it to the Chinese, right? Henry VIII had opium, but he didn't repeal Magna Carta. Something happened after 1800 to 1900 because they made a lot of those drugs illegal because there were a lot of people getting high and stuff. But this is my hunch, I've got a feeling that the royals from mid-1800s going up to the 1900s and then after, particularly, through the 1920s, I think they were really living the high life on the recreational drugs under the cover, because it's a statement with Charles, the whole, kind of Charleston 1920s, Queen Elizabeth, Beatles, 1960s, bop, bop, wop. I think that it really gave them overconfidence. I think there were a lot of drugs going around in Royals, amphetamines. They were getting overconfident, thinking that they were literally gods and so forth. I'm not saying that our country has been, in poverty, or I'm not saying our country has been, we've got laws. A lot of people respect our country, Churchill, so forth, post offices, cakes, buns, quaint villages, nods in the street, smiles. I'm not saying that this has been a terrible place or country to live in, because there is a lot of rights and there is a lot of public services, compared to countries that don't have an infrastructure. But there's a darker side to it. Particularly, from the war, the bomb shelters, get your head between your legs in your bomb shelter and all that. And there's some element of this elitism, fascism. We've got all the nice things, because basically, people wanted to just keep a steady life, but they made the Labour Party and they made everyone work. You will work, you're the labourers, right? We're all going to have the good things in life, the nice things, whether we like it or not. We're not just going to be, like PC plods, or kind of like, happy-go-lucky, laid-back Devonshire, life's a dream, just, steady, cottage industry, not in excess type England. This is what a lot of World War II was about. People who didn't want to have to put the pedal to the metal. And unfortunately, getting rid of Magna Carta, they can't actually take your car off you or your use of your vehicle in Magna Carta. And, you're meant to have a right to a jury, but they've done the 1850s. But really, all this business with the speeding fines and getting more fines, which really started to take off, 1960s to 1970s and 80s, and then 90s with the speed cameras, they were starting to get more fines, parking fines around London. And the thing with Magna Carta, with all this, right to judgment by your peers, and, police can't hold common pleas because otherwise, also you can't buy justice. The thing is, what is buying something? Let's give him money over for something. So you can't say, oh, you've committed a crime. We need to find out whether you're guilty or not in a court. But I'll tell you what, give me some money and you won't have to go to court and face a trial. Isn't that buying justice? It says we will not sell justice. Now, you might try and argue what is or what is not selling justice, but the one thing that starts off with selling justice is the exchange of money. Now, if you have got money and someone wants money from you, a coin or a pound note, right? To sell justice, they need to take some money off you in any way, shape or form. Money has to come from you. Now, you might say you can't. Now, if you think of it like, if you want to frame it this way, right? Oh, well, that means that if that means that what they're trying to say by that is, if you've got a court, they're not allowed to say, oh, it's £5 entry into the court, right? Or you can't have a trial unless you pay £50, and then you can have a trial. But if you couldn't have a trial unless you paid them £50, then you wouldn't have to go on trial, would you? So that'd suit me. I'd say, I can't afford it. I'm sorry, I won't be able to go on trial. See you later. So we can't try me because I ain't got the £50, right? To none we will sell justice. So if it's £10 into the court, like they're charging into a cinema for your own trial, if you ain't got £10, you can't get in. So how can you go on trial? So you just say, sorry, I can't watch this film today. I can't watch, Action Hero. I ain't got enough money. I'm off home. See you later. So they're not charging into the court, and then if you can't afford to get in, not giving you justice. What are the police chiefs actually doing? Wrap your head around this. right? There's a courtroom there with a jury who are going to give you a free trial through lawful due process, right? And what the police chief is doing, he'll say, I'll tell you what, we'll let you off if you give us 50 quid and you won't have to do it. That's justice. A verdict for money, right? Or you're not even having to face the trial. And this is what Elizabeth and Philip repealed, the Magna Carta, right? So they can rack up loads and loads and loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of fines, from parking fines to, although they're not criminal offences, but they're still being immersed. And then, pay the town red. And then, sheriffs aren't allowed to hold common pleas. Courts shall, for the less serious offences, the circuits of the courts that follow around the country, the hundreds courts, which are in a fixed place, your local courts, with your local people, you're not waiting for the King's Assizes to come round, or quarter sessions, for the serious offences. They're in a fixed place, like the hundreds in a fixed place. Although they used to have hundreds, they used to hold them in people's houses, I think, as well, and so forth. But I think they've always had courts, buildings in some form or other. But you see, the police station is the police station, although you've got Warrington. If you look at Warrington police station, it's quite an old one. So the court building is like an extension. The police station is built onto the side of the court, right? But the thing is, it says that it has to be done in a fixed place to hold the pleas. Yet with West Yorkshire Police, they've got umpteen police stations, and they've got the courts. Some of them, the courts have shut down now. Then they've got a central processing ticket office, which is in the centre of Bradford city centre, which is just an office where they process letters and get you to sending checks to HMCR, a Majesty's Court Service, HMRC, whatever. And put points in your licence on a computer to DVLA, but they're who's in charge of them? The police chief, right? And also, I once went to court in Warrington, and I'm saying can I go on the speed awareness course? And the court said, we can't decide that. It's up to the police chief. I couldn't go on that speed awareness course without permission from the police chief. It's an alternative to court punishment, right? He gives that anyway if you don't go to court. So, but that speed awareness course still is a form of corrective treatment, community services corrective treatment. And you don't even have to go to a court or anything for that. But he's taking money. You have to confess. You can't have the fine taken off you unless you've confession, and that's a plea. But if you plead not guilty, you go to a court. What the police chief is actually doing is taking a confession from you, after which he can fine you when you admit it. And also, there's a lot of questionable stuff around, witnesses, and witnesses are additional persons to the police. It's not like the sheriff. It's meant to be like an independent witness or the victim, right? And another thing is that if there is no victim, you can have lots of offences where you broke the law, right? Stopping, in a motorway or whatever. But, you can have victimless crimes, weeing in public. So if you wee in public, there's an offence for that, but no one was there. So you broke the King's law, right? Maybe it's in the public interest. It's in the public interest to prosecute you, and obviously, verse Regina says on the paper. But now, even when it's not, when you don't get an indictment to the High Court or Crown Court, the King's judges, when you just go to a magistrate's court, now it's still got the crown on it. Magistrate's court's got the crown on it, and on the prosecution it says, verse Regina. That's the, it doesn't say verse, the local people or the 100 or whatever, right? So, a lot of what they're doing is against the Magna Carta. the customs of the realm. And since the mid-1800s, it was slowly getting corroded, but this Magna Carta repeal really is very, very, very significant, because that is it's not just legislation and an act of parliament. It's not just a statute either. It's not a statute law. It's actually the Great Charter and contains the customs of this civilization, or of these islands, or of the entire history. It's meant to be the memories of the people, the gold standard of these creatures, these beings, right? The Denzians. So, and all what I've just showed you, all those, there are multiple statutes that say that you know, you're not even supposed to repeal statutes, but definitely not the Magna Carta. It's not even a statute, and even if you did repeal it or act against it, you haven't done, right? So, you know, there are quite a few different laws here. And even being adjudged a traitor. See, you know, if any statute be made contrary to the Great Charters, it shall be holden to none. Well, if any statute, not even an act of law, a repeal. So, I'm sorry, but I really think this dynasty of Windsors really took the biscuit, so to say, or really took the bun. Now, there's no doubt, you know, that Elizabeth, you know, she was very popular with the old ladies, with grandmas, you know, with the kingdom, the whole Charles and Diana, teacups, tea cozies, you know, blah, 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 all this. But then you've got these really odd events with, you know, Diana, you know, in the incident in France and so forth and so forth. So, Philip was really into his cars and the military. And I think the military's got a lot to do with the speed cameras and the radar and the invention of that and a lot of things. They definitely had a country that was embodying liberty, the liberty to make things and prosper, but mainly for the excess of the few. And then what we've ended up with now after Elizabeth has passed is what we've ended up with is all these oligarchs like Bezos, Zuckerberg, Musk, Gates, and they are the fruits of the tree of what they did and what they took from us, because we couldn't hold them to account through the civil magistrates' courts, through the courts of civil requests, and they bought everything from everyone. And then they got the military as well, kind of like, they got, you know, things go missing in the post or incidents and accidents happen. So, you know, as Sunak likes to say, oh, you know, got to be tough, not just tough on crime, you know, give them the wink and the nudge and you know who's in charge. This is freedom and liberty, but you got to know who's in charge, you got to know who's the boss, you know. And unfortunately, we've lost this because they want to be our lords, really. And really all that, what we've discovered now and what we're just all, what's happening now with people like Dr. John Campbell's channel, Neil, Oliver Russell Brand and you know, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and the rest of them, they've realised or come around, woken up or come sober or you know, become clarified, clear, or the penny's dropped, it's clicked that they're actually just getting basically effectively law through all their private companies and businesses now, which they're just getting us to imposing on us, saying, right, well, you know, we own all the shoe companies, all the companies and businesses aren't yours now. They're not independent persons. They're ours. and we've got rules, and if you don't abide by these rules, you can't use anything. Well, what is the country? If there are no shops, if there are no fields growing things, if every business premise and thing within the realm is owned by private persons who actually turn out to be the royals, but they've got their own rules which you have to accept, and you don't get to vote on them because it comes from an executive order, not from Parliament. They've effectively, what they've done is, the realm, which is all owned by the public, which you vote on, Royal Mail, BT, British Gas, Yorkshire Water, all these things, they've been, it's almost like they've, there's their things, their private things, and then there's the country, the nation. They've actually, you've got Charles, who's meant to be the king, and then the Parliament who vote on the laws, and then the politics. But what effectively has happened is all of the things that are meant to be the people's or the crown's, is rather than national ownership, has gone to private ownership. But it's this blotter at Vanguard. But, it's Charles is saying that it's not his blotter at Vanguard, yet he owns McDonald's. It's not like, it's kind of really like it's been taken from Parliament, really, been given to Sunak in his private capacity. It's like Walney, Sunak, all of the, and they've got more and more and more peers. There only used to be, so many barons, 20 odd or 30 odd barons. How many barons do you need? They've got more barons in Parliament now, but they don't want to hear judicial cases with us or appeals, or they don't provide support for petitions, casework support, enforcement. We're not really getting anything from them, but there are hundreds and hundreds and, all these peers. But they're all getting up to God knows what with Baron M's yacht and all their private business enterprises, lobbying, changing and setting rules, doing private companies, investing in technology, facial recognition, all these new things that are taking us over, all the chemicals, the foods, it's their private company. The peers of the House of Lords have bought. We've sold them the nation, and they don't want to live by our customs of the nation anymore. They now want to live by the peers' customs, which are, you don't have the right to a jury and judgment by your peers. You can be lynch mobbed by the police. I took a photo of you. Give me 30 quid. Ambushed in the forest by the highwayman. He took a dirty, pervy photo of you, and he wants 30 quid, and he sends you a scrubby letter in the post, and if not, they grab you and rough you up. There is no lawful due process. Well, the only lawful due process is that he's sending you a letter. But that's not what the lawful due process was. It was to get the evidence in a room with people through a procedure so everyone could have a look at what happened, and then the conscience of the people could make a decision what is right and wrong based on the morals and values of the country, not on a business model of Philip Windsor and Elizabeth Windsor and Charles Windsor and Lord Walney, not on his business model for fines, which is congestion, Tony Blair, congestion charge, or John Major in a major military major. Oh, look, there's Philip, military John Major's the man, John Major with the radar detecting speed cameras and the military with a crown on them, It's... They want to extract large amounts of fines on a strict rule, but not on a conscience rule, on a moral rule, or on a proper established lawful due process. It's a mechanical machine of a way to live life. So this is what's happened. And then, the whole facade with Elizabeth's cakes, Elizabeth's Cake Company, Sugar Beet, has harmed us, injured us capacity to call them out on these things. In fact, it has harmed the gold standard of health because the sperm count has dropped by 50%, according to that doctor who was on Russell Brand. So where's the gold standard in sperm count? And all these, God bless them, these plump little ladies who have gone to the post office for a chinwag and a cream tea and a cream bun and, nice beautiful stamps and sending lovely frilly letters to the Queen and, all the rest of it, Strictly Come Dancing probably at the back end of it and, Sweaty Simon Cowell and his, X Factor, be adored like Her Majesty, be adored, be cheered by crowds, come and have a bit of this, come have a line of this Coke, we can do anything, nothing can stop us, get on the stage, be adored, be worshipped, get on the stage with Simon Cowell, be worshipped like a god, have, feast on cream teas, on Kipling's, unfortunately, a lot of the ladies fell for that, and they thought that is what liberty is and freedom. There's no doubt that arts and crafts and nice paintings and fabric curtains and all these lovely quaint country gardens and roses and so forth. But after a while, it became this corporate art, functional, basic, an abattoir of industrial mechanism through the McDonald's drive-through. Oh, this is all convenient, press the buttons on the machine. This is Mark Zuckerberg's world. And Zuckerberg probably is the brainchild or the creature, the product of, probably more so than Charles, really, probably more so than Prince Harry or William. Zuckerberg is almost kind of like, he's like on that Prometheus, isn't it? Ridley Scott's Prometheus, these architects, it's, he's got the judo moves, Zuckerberg will rip your head off, he's a hard judo guy, he knows everything about everyone, every detail, he knows what colour socks you've got on, how many stitches, how many stitches are in your wallet, anything, this is the product of it, information at your fingertips, what cups the ball under. Zuckerberg knows, he can tell you what's locked in a fucking safe, buried, 18 million miles under the fucking earth, it's like fucking Anakin Skywalker, I've written something down on this bit of paper, I can tell me what's in it. Oh, of course I know, Mark Zuckerberg, it says, Mark Zuckerberg smells, this is it. Power. But they couldn't have done it without this framework, and I think it's taken away not only the health, the gold standard of conscience, but what Sunak will say is he'll say that, we've got a new standard, you don't look at someone funny, don't misgender them, don't speak about anyone in the privacy of your own home. That is computer programming. That's people programming. That's not like, let's have a laugh and a giggle and a joke or, in fact, it's, like, don't joke, don't joke. It's not human. I don't think it's human. And if it is, it's not of the customs of this realm. And we're hanging on to the customs by the skin of his teeth through Magna Carta Clause 1, really, because that's got the Charter of Liberties and of the Forest and of the laws of Edward the Confessor as well. And I don't think Elizabeth lawfully could repeal that Magna Carta because it's not statute law and it's not an act of Parliament like that in law. It is previous laws of Edward the Confessor and customs of the realm on record that were recorded, and the liberties and beliefs, then it's set out. And that's what the Magna Carta is. And there are multiple statute laws that say it's distinctly different, separate from law, and that it can't be repealed. So my opinion is that, I think while everyone was eating tea and cakes and biscuits and living the kind of, not American dream, because America's America, but the English version. While everyone was in the country garden having tea and biscuits, while the country garden was turning into a corporate art, we've ended up. It's ended up becoming corporate art in a way. In a way, a chav is corporate art, because in a way, he's been born and bred Labour, always vote Labour, you're a labourer, and he's been given his Adidas tracksuit bottoms made and designed for him with the shoes and an electric scooter or a, Golf GTI or whatever it is. And, all the hair and fashion has been designed for him. Chav comes off a conveyor belt in a way, really, but I'm not knocking chavs. And then he's got his David Beckham, which is the gold-plated kind of like, his skills to pay the bills. You can have the Stella Artois, the embossed can version. It doesn't have to be a kind of skull. The David Beckham with the gold fancy bits on the elaborate, fancy car suit, with the girlfriend and the celebrity contacts and the, instead of being being in the crowd cheering, you can be cheered at. You can be instead of being a worshipper, you can be the worshipped. So, in a way, that's been going on, and now everyone's kind of like, when all these cameras are coming in, facial recognition, and all these fines in London. And London's not meant to have any fines. It's meant to be the liberty of London. Well, not for tolls on the road anyway. It's meant to be free passage through London. Now, that's another thing. So, I mean, it looks like we're up against a lot of the House of Lords and a lot of big businessmen in Parliament. And when, Barry Sheeman ain't going to save us, because they are like the little lads who they pat on the head, the Fagin, the Fagin's little gang. But it's not Fagin's gang; it's Parliament's little gang. They bring them under their wing. Sheeman, his tech media centre. We're going to put ourselves on the map and all this. And they haven't done anything. They've been in on it. Like the Peaky Blinders. That they've been. I'm in. We're in. We're in on this, and they've taken a lot of his rights and liberties away and fined the hell out of us and claimed all the time, I'm working class for Labour people, I have more pound in the pocket for us or whatever. Well, while we're being designed into these, what they talk about on the football all the time, these set pieces, these turn into products, really. That's my opinion. I think that the Windsors were really high on drugs, and rather than, Henry VIII, was meant to be, taking a lot of opium, but I really think, that Magna Carta has lasted all the way through. I really think that they must have been on the amphetamines with the excess confidence, nothing can stop us, we are gods. And I think that's what happened with Philip Windsor and Elizabeth. And we've ended up with Musk, Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, Neil Mohan, Sunak, and all these kind of like really kind of excessively insanely rich, abnormal. It's not. If that's the gold standard, then it must be rarer than, you talk about gold being rare. That's not the gold standard. If that is the new standard, talk about rare. What's rarer than rare? They must be nearly extinct. It's not a distinct. There's a distinction, but gold standard is meant to be standard. Nothing standard about them. There's nothing standard about Sunak. Nothing. No one touches these people in wealth. They're in a class of their own. There is no standard. What is our health standard? What is our financial standard now? Not good. These are not, they're not Gustav Graves, rare gems, Piers Brosnan, picking them out in a fencing match. They're not standard. There's nothing standard about these people. They're making things at the standard, which are now out. They're producing all the things for us, which are standard. But by God, they aren't the standard. Jeff Bezos. These people are a class beyond classes. Abnormality. It's not. They're not standard, and our standard has been stolen. And by God, they won't be judged by, I don't know who they get judged by, House of Lords, I don't know, Baroness M, Lord Walney. Walney needs to wake up and snap out of it, because we're not going to be judged by machines in an automated system which records facts which no human actually makes an opinion or assessment on, other than their oath-sworn-in officers who are pro-cause and paid to do a job. You aren't tried by the victim. You aren't tried by the plaintiff. The plaintiff is not your judge and cannot be your judge. The plaintiff is not the prosecutor. Well, a plaintiff can prosecute for himself, but the judge can't be the prosecutor. I tell you that. And you need a prosecutor in civil proceedings. I'd like to see the police chief turn up. They've got a CPS now. It is if the police chief is going to hold common pleas, what position is the police chief going to be in? Is he the judge? Is he the prosecutor? Or is he on the jury? Or is it like, on Terminator 2000, they just got duplicates of the police chief, or what? And the victim, maybe the police officer is the victim, and then all the citizens are the police. Oh look, it's the police. Maybe the police, they replicate the police chief, into the citizens. Every citizen is a replica of the police chief, and then you'll know where you're at. Because everyone's a police officer. Oh, back to the start, are we now? Where's Guy Fawkes? Now we're in business. Now we'll have a good fest. Now, won't we? Now we're all police officers. So I don't think that she could repeal Magna Carta. Now the other thing is in this. So going back to this, it's declared and enacted that no man should be judged of life or limb against the form of the Great Charter and the law of the land, and by the said Great Charter and the other laws and statutes. Well, you might say, well, it says the said Great Charter and the laws and statutes. See, the other laws or and other the laws and statutes. That suggests that the laws and statutes is something other. The word other means different from, or you might think it means and more of other apples. But it says in the earlier sentence, it says the Great Charter and the law of the land. And by the said Great Charter and other the laws and statutes of this realm, and by the customs of the same realm. But where are the customs? How do you know what the customs are? Where are they written down? Well, they're in the Great Charter. That's the thing. The customs definitely aren't laws, they're customs. You can't repeal the customs. And then the thing with this video is I've been recording for 1 hour and 5 minutes now. There was another bit that I got highlighted. It was that bit, but the earlier part. Oh, here we go. So this is the same part we was looking at, but it's highlighted underneath it. Now, I know that I've been talking an hour, and it's probably going to annoy maybe Judicial Conduct Investigation Office if we've been talking an hour when I've only been touching upon certain things to do with the parliamentary privilege. But it says here in the Petition of Right that Parliament, and whereas no offender of what kind soever is exempted from the proceedings to be used and punishments to be inflicted by the laws and statutes of this realm, right? So you're not exempted from being answerable to the law. Well, that is in the 1100 Charter of Liberties, before Magna Carta brought in that peers can be only judged by their equals. Now, what makes someone not equal to them is when they're sworn into Parliament and they get privilege or an oath of the Lords. But also, justices take an oath. But also, besides the justices taking an oath, the police take an oath as well. And also a jury, right? Now, in the charters of the different towns and boroughs, all of the mayor and the alderman and the sheriff and the jurats, everyone's answerable to the law through lawful due process, right? So all the citizens can accuse them of a crime, but they have got to go through lawful due process, right? But the parliamentary one and the King's justices are meant to be different under the jurisdiction of Parliament. But because the police, the ones that have taken the oath of supremacy are meant to be set aside from those who haven't, right? So the police chief takes the oath of supremacy now. The jurors didn't take the oath of supremacy. They just took the oath to uphold the laws, right? And unlawful due process. But the police chief now takes the oath of supremacy. So the judge takes the oath of supremacy, but the jurats don't. And that's who you're meant to be judged by. Because the police chief is the one who's prosecuting. So when the police chief can't hold common pleas, he's not allowed to hold pleas because he's the one who, he is the plaintiff really. If he's caught you for a crime, there's the victims and the plaintiff really, because to have a lawful due process, you need obviously honest people who are sworn in because they're going to uphold the laws and process and procedure the laws. But going through that process, part of the lawful due process and by the law of the land is that everything will get heard and the evidence get seen and shown and then the peers make a judgment. And the peers, it is a lawful due process that the peers can judge by their opinion or have the law of the land applied, which is distinctively different, which is why we've got this issue with the Extinction Rebellion cases and, like Trudy Warner and so forth, and all that issue around the William Penn cases to do with the conscience, the right of the jurors to decide on their conscience, which is all connected into that William Penn case. If you read the full entire citation of that case and the dialogue in it, it explains everything. It's self-explanatory in the dialogue of the recording of those proceedings. So, yeah, I mean, police chief aren't supposed to come and police. Now, what about privilege and exemption? So, what? Because there's an issue. I've kind of like gone about it a long way, but I'm going to bring this because there's a few cases that all cross over at the moment. That they're all tied in together, mainly because of issues over privilege, issues of those Magna Carta rights, and what the courts have been up to, and then some other issues, mainly to do with Magna Carta, like, London fines the Liberty of London, which that's still in force, and a few other things, but they're all kind of tied together. So, but there is a privilege. Now the thing is, the peers, 1215, they decided they were going to be prosecuted only by their own peer equals, but they are liable to the law. But then you see what Queen Elizabeth did in 1967 is. Or around 1967 and 8, because it takes a few years for it to go through. The act that repealed Magna Carta is in a couple. There's a few acts. The 1967, 68, 69. In that, it's a little bit like the Constitutional Reform Act. It was 2005 to 2010, but there's a succession of actions over a year to 2 year period. Action in it all. In a few different acts. Now, they decided they were going to get rid of that Magna Carta clause where peers can only be judged by their equals, right? And now, Jeremy Johnson, KC, was arguing that, peers can only be judged in Parliament, but Parliament doesn't hear judicial matters anymore. They said they scrapped them in the Constitutional Reform Act, right? So, it can't be heard by Parliament. Now, the thing with this is that it says that no one will claim any exemptions, except by lawful due process, right? Tried by lawful due process, but what is that? So, what my conclusion is probably going to finish off at, and I'm just still waiting for one more book to arrive that I've bought, that Erskine May book. But I from reading Erskine May, there's a lot of maybes and probablys in Erskine May's writing. It's the thing with the Parliament can suspend their own rules, right? They can vote. They can vote to suspend their own rules. Well, they used to be able to vote when they tried their peers, vote on, how many, like the jury vote, who thinks they're guilty or not, or whatever, except the ones who have done wrong and so forth. So, effectively, if Parliament are going to do a vote to suspend a rule, it's effectively like a jury saying that, that law doesn't apply. Okay? But if they don't do that, then they're not exercising it. So they're not suspending the rule or the law. Like with Lord Hindfield, why didn't they write into the court to Alistair McReef and say, we've suspended the rules on the expenses, but they didn't, because then there wouldn't be any rules to try them with. But they can be tried for misdemeanors and offences, right? And also civil actions in between sessions. And definitely doesn't have to be in Parliament now, because if it was in Parliament, it would only be by their peers. But, it doesn't have to be by their peers now, so it can be by anyone. And that's only since 1688 anyway. That was only halfway through 1688, when we got our right to petition survivors subject to petition the king, and all prosecutions and commitments for doing so are illegal. We've got a protection. But then you're saying, well, if peers can be prosecuted, what about, that means we should be as well. What about assisting offenders, and the CPS can get permission from the Attorney General or the Chief Crown Prosecutor to grant immunities, they can grant immunities to offenders or to witnesses if they want them to help them, catch criminals and so forth. Well, this is the thing, right? So the peers can vote to suspend their rules. So that means the rules don't apply to them, right? And really, that's the same process as if they were judging each other by their own peers anyway, whether they were guilty of it or not. If they exercise it, but if they don't, they can be tried out of Parliament still, if they haven't exercised it, then why shouldn't they be tried out of Parliament, so the same really, what my conclusion has come to now is that it's essentially the same thing, but with our peers, with us, so our level with our peers. So like, the jury. But the thing with the petition is, what you're actually doing is you are actually you're a person bringing a case, like a police officer pursuing a crime. It doesn't have to be criminal, though. It can be civil action or civil request or matter. And what you're actually doing is, because you're setting it out in writing and swearing that it's the truth, and it's going through to petitioning the king, you're submitting to the king's law, to the king's rules, to the king's procedures, and affirming the petition, and then people are subscribing to it, signing to it, agreeing to it. You're getting prejudgment from your peers, right? Because it's a lawful due process that you're going through. But you see, this is the thing with the police chief. All he's got is legislation. He's got legislation, right? Or the honest men of the crown, whatever, they're taking snapshots of you and they're sending fines, right? They say, no, you broke this law, right? Give us the money. But you say, well, where's my fair trial? By my equals, not by my accuser, right? Not by my accuser, not by the victim. Even if I headbutt someone, they're not the judge. You can't headbutt someone and then go to court and then the judge is the guy you headbutted, right? Even if you knocked a police officer out, right? So what the police chief is kind of doing is almost petitioning you to admit that you were guilty and pay a fine by writ. And I also believe now that it is selling justice, because he's not. I mean, if he wasn't selling justice, then you could say, "Oh no, I don't fancy it. I don't fancy that. I don't want a fine. Not interested in one of those. How much are they? You're not buying a fine. I'm selling 3 points. Oh, how much is that? Well, I'll tell you what. I've got 3 points. For sale here. It's £30 a point. But we sell them in threes. Oh, I'll have those. How much is it? £60. So can I have 3 points, please? Yes, that's £60, sir. Thank you. That's selling just for sale. Points for sale. You got points for sale, right? You're selling them for £60 a time, right? Because otherwise, if it was £60 to enter the court to have a fair trial, and you didn't have £60, you wouldn't have to go to trial, right? Because you couldn't afford it. Even if the bailiff come to get you, unless the bailiff took the £60 off you and then took you into court, right? It's what he's doing is you're not going to court and having a fair trial, right? in exchange, he's saying, if you give me £60, right, you won't have to face justice. But he is, because you're giving a confession. You're getting justice because justice is a verdict, and you're having suffer a consequence, a legal consequence, like community service or even going on a speed awareness course, right? For money. You're paying money for punishment, speed awareness course, or you're paying money for points, right? Now, if you go to court and plead not guilty, or even if you do plead guilty, you pay nothing, right? The fine is when you've been found guilty through a lawful due process, right? Afterwards, you didn't have to pay money to access to the process. Why? Because the taxpayer pays for it. We pay for it. It's tax. We fund the government, right? They used to, according to Professor Karen Bowie, they used to pay money to submit petitions. They have to pay money to submit petitions, or even to stand in elections. But they stopped that in the Bill of Rights. But then they started doing it for the deposit on the mayor and the police and crime commissioner elections again. So it's so against Magna Carta on so many points through there, but most of them have been repealed by Lisbeth. And when we try to challenge them and get the law changed and take action against these people who are really breaking the law, they really are breaking the law of England and the customs of the realm, right? You get Lord Walney saying, we'll have to put a stop to this, and unruly citizens. Hello, excuse me, Walney. Who are you? Where are the customs of the realm? Now, this is not customs of McDonald's or customs of Walney Inc. Submit, accept. This is Lord Walney Limited. Consent, submit, accept. Kneel before Walney and Co. Musk, Zuckerberg, Gates. Kneel before Walney. Submit, consent, accept. We got photographs of you. This is a photograph of you. Feeding a jelly tot to a baby. Consent, submit, yield, kneel. And can I have a fair trial? Yes, but it'll cost you £50. And then what's the fine? Well, if we find you guilty, then that's £100. Yeah, but I paid £100 to have a trial. You pay 60. It's the police chief. It's a wacky combination of he's holding illegal pleas and taking confessions off you, and then giving you the punishment when he can't hold pleas because the police are the accuser, the plaintiff, so he can't hold pleas. It's impossible. He can't issue a punishment, and then at the same time, he is also taking money for justice. It is like you get a verdict for the money, and then the verdict that you want is that, well, it's not the verdict you want because you want to be not guilty, but you get guilty. You're paying to. You're almost like paying to be. You're paying for yourself to be found guilty. You're giving money over. Because, on your own confession, but you're not being judged by your peers. You're being judged by the honest people who are supposedly meant to be honest enough to run the legal process, but they're not meant to, they've took the oath of supremacy. The jury don't take the oath of supremacy. The jury take the oath to apply the rights and liberties and laws. So it's so going back to the petition. So what the petition is the petition is you going to your peers through a lawful, written, due, lawful process, writing an oath down by petition, using the lawful due process of the kingdom, abiding by the laws, and your peers are, if there's anything that you need to do, you are actually suspending the rules, like Extinction Rebellion, doing their protests and actions and so forth. It's the peers. That's why all prosecutions are illegal. Prosecutions by the King's Bench for matters cognisable, debatable, only in Parliament, because you're actually taking that matter to Parliament, and then the peers can judge you. The problem is that they are judging us, but all the time. They're not even granting us that peer. Well, basically, what they're wanting to do is they're kind of say, all right, well, they're kind of sort of overriding it. But I don't think they're even giving you it. They're wanting. They don't want to have sessions in Parliament anymore. They don't want appeals to Parliament or judicial in Parliament. But they want their standard, which they don't hold on themselves. Obviously, they've got the privilege. They've got privilege. They're not. They're undermining and failing to recognise our privileges amongst our peers when we're bringing grievances to them, and they've got a new, very tough process, which is extremely ridiculously tough on petty fines, but it's making money and raking money in. And it's really taking people's cars off them now and things off them. When Magna Carta says you can't have your car taken off you, but Sadiq Khan is actually forcing people's vehicles off them and forcing them to get a different vehicle when they might like that vehicle. You will have the phones that we say you're having. You will have the Reebok outfit, the Chav outfit what we say you're having, and you're going to have the car that we say you're having now. You can't choose what you have. You'll have what you're given, right? It's not going to be like, if you make your own arts and crafts, or you make your own shoes, or you make your own clothes and you design them. No. By the time we finish, we won't have any skills left. We won't even be able to read and write. And we won't even be able to talk soon, because they're going to just, have us all on Bluetooth, and then, BT have got this new digital voice thing, which is kind of claiming that, digital voice. But what it is they're trying to record a digital kind of signature of your aura or whatever, or your, mental state that can be picked up and read. It's beyond digital voice now. They've been listening to voices for God knows what time with AI. They're going to be listening to what people are thinking and feeling and stuff, and if you can't say what you want in your own home, you're not going to be able to feel what you want in your own home. You're not going to be able to feel angry at them. And when someone takes away your rights and liberties and customs, and then they make it a criminal for you to feel angry about that, it's literally like someone being able to kick you in the balls and you can't do a thing about it, or slap you across the face. This is the legacy of what Lord Walney, and I don't submit, consent, yield or kneel. These people are master criminals of another calibre. And Queen Victoria and Philip, I think they were really excelled themselves in the narcotics when they repealed the Magna Carta, because you can't do it, can't be done. So, and now where people are trying to petition to oppose this, and we're not being granted our immunities when we suspend our rules through legal writ and lawful due process, getting the consent of our equals through a lawful due process, doesn't need to be approved by a magistrate's court like in the 1661 Tumultuous Petitioning Act anymore. Yet the police officer is doing the same thing. I've got a bunch of my buddies and pals, in the ticket office. I've got a photo on you. Give us 50 quid. It's all right for them, oh no, you don't want to be going to having your jury. You don't want to be going to a magistrate's court with a jury and having your peers, use their conscience on you. No. You give me £30 and say you're guilty, or go on a speed awareness. What they do is they give you a speed and awareness course with your peers when you're all being naughty, and then they're dictating to you, and they're trying to change your conscience. They're trying to change the customs of the realm. You used to vote for the police chief. It would be interesting if the Police and Crime Commissioner turned up at the speed awareness course and started teaching it, because then it would be something, because you're voting for this person, right? And he's telling you that you're bad and how you should be behaving, right? Just a minute. We're the one who elect these people. We should be elected. The police chief should be elected, not just the Police and Crime Commissioner. The police chief should be elected like they used to be, not internal decisions. Because that's all period. That's through peerage and rank and regime. So that's where I am with it now. With the how the 1688 Bill of Rights, and I think that it wasn't just invented in the 1688 Bill of Rights. It comes from the customs, and it comes from Magna Carta, the judgment of the peers, because you're getting because you're not appealing something. You're not appealing a charge. With the petition, you're just, walking around normal or whatever, or in normal, no event has occurred, and then you've got a problem or issue that arises, and you're the one who wants to take a legal action. You're not responding to a legal action. You are initiating a legal action. You're not responding to a police chief's charge. You are the one who is raising a case, a cause. And this is when you get the consent of the peers, to suspend the rules. And this is how you can get illegal prosecutions and so forth by the King's Bench for matters cognizable, debatable in Parliament, because it's a case to either Houses of Parliament or the King, right? So it's and then that you're engaged in those matters, right? Now, if the peers break the law, right, the thing is, if there's a law that's in force, like, stealing your car, the thing is, the Lords in Parliament, unless they vote on it, maybe they could vote on exempting themselves from stealing your car, but they aren't doing, are they? They don't have it unless they've got, as the case may be, unless they've got a powerful case may be. Things are going through Parliament, they're hearing matters, doing matters, but, you can't just walk up to him and kick you in the balls, unless, he's doing an experiment, through Parliament to a scientific experiment to see, how people react to being kicked in the balls and suspend the rules or whatever. If there's a case for it, now, and if, maybe it's an ongoing experiment, through the McDonald's feed, once the sperm count's already down 50%, that's worse than a kick in the balls. Talk about the customs, ancient customs of the realm, the gold standard in sperm count. So this is kind of how it works. But I'm going to get the Erskine May book, and I think that is the basis of it and how it works. And I don't think that Erskine May book's going to reveal too much more, really, on it.